Okay, right now here's the Mark the counter apologetic and his response to this debate between David Silverman and Frank Turek. And it's titled, let me just the reality debate, atheism versus theism. And so you can Google that actually you can search that on YouTube. Um, I want to comment on Frank Turek's defense or his claim that God can be beyond time, can be outside of time, and still human beings can still have free will. He gives a couple of examples and one analogy. And I want to make sure that I share this with you before I respond to it. So basically, Silverman's saying that it is hypothetically impossible for a God to be outside of time, and yet human beings can have free will. And when we're talking about free will, we're talking about in regards to their actions. Okay, so Frank Turek is responding to this. Um, he believes that God can be outside of time, and still people and human beings can still have free will. So let me share with you his defense of this. Hold on. So we go to 118, 120, 125 by 1.
Wow. That,
Okay. We'll put this here.
Gonna sin. Well, maybe if he puts it over there, they are too. Let me also point this out. You have to put it anywhere. Well, and then there would be no creation. But you see, comparing, would be a creation. Comparing a moral world to a non-world, there's no way to compare them. Okay. Now, just because you know something doesn't mean that you're choosing, or that the person doesn't have free will. If you have a 16-year-old daughter, you knew when you had her that she would sin one day, but you're not responsible for that sin. Yet
I
you
don't
choose to have her.
have 100% foreknowledge. I can't cause
You
her to
knew she
sin.
would sin because she's a human being, yet you chose to have her.
But Adam was without sin. He was perfect.
Yes, and he chose, but God can redeem.
He didn't choose. He had no choice because God put the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Let me
where
ask
he
you-
knew Adam would eat the fruit with 100%
Let's assume
certainty.
you love NFL football, which I know you do. Okay. And one day, your Sunday, you're away from the TV, so you've got TiVo, and you record a whole bunch of games while you're away. Then on your way home, you hear the scores on the radio, and you go, "Oh, I didn't want to hear the scores." Right? But then you come home and you elect to watch the Giants and the Patriots, and we know how that's going to turn out. It always turns out the right way every time. Right? Now, as you're watching the game, you know what the score's going to be, but does that mean you're causing the players on the field to do what they do, or do they still have free will?
They don't have.
Okay. Let's comment on a couple of things that Frank Turek said. First of all, he tries to make an analogy that since David Silverman knew that his 16-year-old daughter would quote unquote sin, or in the secular world make mistakes, um, that does not negate free will. Um, then he makes the comment that since he knows that Silverman knows that his daughter would sin because she's a human being. Now, let me just make a quick comment. He doesn't know. He does not know. I would say that he does not know. He predicts. He predicts that his daughter will sin. He does not know if his daughter's going to sin or if his daughter's going to make mistakes. That is a prediction. Okay. Just like if I turn on my car, I predict that it will turn on. That does not mean that I know for certain that the car will turn on. I do not know that. The car could decide not to turn on because it's I don't know, malfunctioned. Okay, so that is a prediction. I predict that I will live till the end of today. That is a prediction. That's not that he's confusing knowledge. Knowledge knowledge in the technical sense means 100% certainty, and there is no 100% certainty. Okay, it's highly probabilistic that her daughter will make mistakes because she's a human being. Yes, based on, so even from a scientific worldview, the best you can come up with is predictions. So Frank is flawed in the sense that he believes that there's anything, in a general sense, there's anything such as a concept as absolute knowledge or absolute knowing something. Okay, it doesn't exist. Okay, even in the material naturalistic world, it doesn't exist. Now let's talk about his NFL football analogy. There's a couple flaws in it. First off, the person that knows the score before the game, knows the score of the football game, has knowledge, absolute knowledge of a past event. Okay, it's a past event, so that can't qualify as foreknowledge. For to qualify as foreknowledge, that person would have to know the score of that game before it happened. Okay, so what he's given, the example that he's given, is not really foreknowledge. It's actually knowledge of a past event. So therefore, and then he says that, well, he knows the score of the game, so therefore, then he says that, well, the person, just because you know the score of a game doesn't mean that you influence the people's decisions in the game, quote unquote decisions in the game. I agree. So what? That doesn't, just because you didn't influence the decisions in the game doesn't mean that there are not things in the game that influence or cause people to make those decisions. So that doesn't refute a deterministic worldview at all whatsoever. The bottom line is that if that person would know the score of the game, and actually before that game occurred, it would put a serious doubt in the concept of free will in the sense that you knew exactly what they were going to do. Okay, it's for example, I know, and we clearly know that there's no technical conception of knowing, but in a practical world, I know if I let go of my hand, if I release this pencil from my hand, it will drop like this. Okay, I know that beforehand. Now again, remember, we don't have any there's no 100% accurate definition of knowledge. For all intents and purposes, I know that it will drop. Okay, I can predict that it can drop. Okay, that is a deterministic universe. Okay, the example that Frank Turek gave is not even close to foreknowledge, because the event already occurred. Okay, the event cannot. In order for that to be a good example, that person would have to know before the event happened. A video recording of it only does not help resolve the problem whatsoever, because we still have a past event. So those are the two flaws that I saw in that free will and foreknowledge argument. I hope you guys understand where a counter apologist is coming from. Okay, actually, I'm glad that I'm analyzing some other apologists besides the presuppositional apologists like Saiten and Eric Hovind. I don't understand how. I just don't see how that's even a coherent argument. I mean, Frank Turek's argument is better. But let's not fool ourselves. It's still brutally flawed, but relative to a presuppositional argument, it's vastly superior. So I'd rather debate what you call evidential apologist or respond to evidential apologist rather than presuppositional apologist. So I hope I continue this pattern. All right. I hope you enjoy the video.